All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today we have Chief Scott Vermillion from Pleasant Hill PD in California. He has 28 years experience on the job, and wellness is really something that he not only prioritizes for himself, but for his agency. So I'm really excited for him to share his insights and words of wisdom on today's episode. So welcome, Chief
Thank
Vermillion.
you.
Thank you so much for being here.
No, I appreciate the invite. And a quick funny story is I told my daughters I was doing this a few days ago. And the first thing they did was look at me puzzled, and then they both laughed at the same time. And then I told my daughter Emily, who's 17 this morning, I remind her I'm doing this, and she again laughed. So I don't know what to make of their laugh. I wasn't trying to be funny. My goal is not to be a disaster today because I think that's where they think that this will go. So that's my goal today.
Well, my goal is to prove them wrong. So,
Yeah, there we go.
well, again, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate your time. I would love if you could give us a little bit of background. I know you've been on the job for a long time, 28 years, a successful career. If you could give me a little bit of background about you, how you got started in law enforcement, and snapshot of those 28 years.
No problem. So for me, it started in my childhood. In fact, the photo right here is my father. He was a police officer, so I'm second generation, which I'm very proud of. As a kid, he would when he worked and lived in the same town. So there was times where after school I would go on a ride along with him as a young child, and then he'd bring me home if he worked graveyard, and then I go to bed. So definitely, it's the seeds were planted a long time ago. At the end of high school, I knew I was going to be in law enforcement, and then went to school. I had a mentor tell me to get my degree before I even started the police academy, even though I was eager to hit the streets. And I listened to him and got a 4-year degree in criminal justice. And way back in 1997, finished the academy and started in a small rural town. My I can call it funny now, but my career almost ended before it even got started. No, I don't think anybody can tell you a story like this one. I almost lit a lady on fire. And so thankfully I did not. But that was how my career almost started and almost ended right at the gate. And it was just rookie mistakes, rookie decision making. And thankfully I did not. And went from there and had a long career here where I'm at right now in Pleasant Hill. And I've done a lot of variety assignments, everything from just my field training officer, SWAT commander, promoted several times. And now, as I get near the twilight of my career, I'm doing the chief thing. So, but 25 years here at Pleasant Hill and another 3 at a smaller agency.
Amazing. And I think we're going to have to dive into that story
Oh,
offline because I'm
no.
really interested in hearing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I bring that up because it's a very stressful job, and there's a lot of times we make bad decisions, and sometimes we just get lucky, and that was one of them that I share with a lot of people to let them know how one decision can really end it all. So
and would you say, without having to go into too much detail, but would you say that that was a learning experience that helped you in your career where, you know, something big happened so early that it was almost like
for sure.
not a blessing, but something that helped you, along with the rest of your career?
Yeah, I share that. I shared that a lot when I was training new officers, because making mistakes in this career is part of the learning process. And sometimes when you have these new officers and they make numerous mistakes on a shift and you're training them, or even as a supervisor, you're correcting reports, or you see them out of scene, they make some bad mistakes. I was like, and a lot of times they get down on themselves, and I say, hey, you didn't almost light a person on fire like I did. You can recover. You will get through this. It's not that bad. So I like to share it just to let them know that, yeah, learn from it, move forward, and live to fight another day.
100%. And I think that's such a good thing to remember that everyone here is human and mistakes are inevitable, but it's how do you learn from them and grow
Sure.
from them and then learn to not make that same mistake again, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that insight and I'm glad that you were able to to take that experience and turn it
Yeah.
into not only a growing and learning experience for you, but something that you can teach to others, down the road. So 28 years ago, we know that wellness looked so different than it does now. And there was this mentality of, rub dirt on it and move on, or like I like to say, shut up, show up. I think we talked about this yesterday.
Yes.
Um, how did that mentality impact your personal wellness on the job or at home?
Yeah, so when I started in again 1997, a long time ago, there really wasn't any. There was physical fitness component that was ingrained in us, but in regard to wellness, there really wasn't anything. But when I started my career, you would when you came to work, you would walk through the back door, and there'd be a few administrators at the back door smoking cigarettes, and you'd have to walk that gauntlet just to get into work, and that was the era that I started my career. Now you don't see anybody smoking at the police department, but that was the thing. Be tough. And even before that, there was, you would hear other stories about trainees that would be in a car with a smoker. And that was just how it was. And if you got hurt, they said, well, let's see if you can walk it off, come to work. And if it's really bad, then we'll get you help. But in regard to mental wellness, there wasn't anything. It really was get back in the game and rub some dirt on it and don't complain. Honestly, was the
Mhm.
mentality is keep it to yourself. Don't bring alarm or ring a bell that you need mental help or anything like that. But the physical fitness portion was there. It was a mixture.
And how do you think that culture impacted your personal wellness? Was it something that, because we know that everyone needs wellness, we know that now, and we know that those resources weren't there before. Um, and we talked about this too. Like I have personal experience of, shove it down, don't deal with it, and
Yep.
and knowing what that does to your life. Do you think that that culture that was back then, that like don't deal with it and just don't complain and shove it down, do you think that that impacted your personal wellness or your wellness on the job?
Yeah, absolutely. This industry is full of very successful, great people, and their success is a lot of times just at work. And unfortunately, the law enforcement has a divorce rate that's up to 70%, I believe. Yeah, there is a very much a correlation between this type of job and your success at home and your personal life. And a lot of people say, and I've heard this time and time and again, and I respectfully don't agree with it, where they're able to turn it off when they go home. I do believe that some people are better at turning it down, but I don't think people that work in law enforcement or first responders can completely turn it off. Just some are more successful at turning it to a level where it doesn't negatively affect their personal lives. But yeah, for me growing up, or not growing up, but me in my early careers, and even now, it's you sacrifice sleep. You don't take the time to do the personal wellness, and then we wonder why we have such a high divorce rate. While there's problems in our personal lives where we struggle as being a parent, we go around and we fix other people's problems and we try to restore them to normal. And often in our personal lives, we don't practice those same things. Even leadership, we can demonstrate great leadership at work, but sometimes in our families, myself included, I have not practiced great leadership at home in my household. And I think it's that crossover from being a first responder, and literally taking some of the stuff home with you.
100%. And thank you for sharing that. I've had so many conversations that revolve around home life and how much that can impact. And I think you nailed it when you said that you're so good at taking care of others, but then when it comes to taking care of yourself, that's lacking. And I think a lot of people who are listening can relate to that because this is a profession of service, and being in service of others and your team and your community. But then when it comes to yourself, it's harder to take that time, especially if you don't feel like you have the resources or the knowledge to do so. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I would love to understand how did that impact how you lead now, as a chief of an agency, creating a culture of wellness within your organization. I know that's something that's important to you. How did your personal experience impact how you're leading now?
Yeah, obviously in law enforcement, we're in a profession where we have to be right. So you take that mentality home with you, and if you're in an argument with a significant other, if you're right at home, that means somebody else is wrong at home, and that person that's wrong at home is someone that you love and care about. I've been to married twice, divorced twice, and I would say my career were factors in my failed relationships, and even with my failed moments as a parent, and it was realizing that I wasn't right all the time. And if I was right, it was often at the cost of someone I cared about being wrong. And when you're wrong, it feels bad. So if you really care about them, it's really proving somebody wrong, especially in your personal life. It can cause damage. So when after some failed relationships, I think it helped me at work too. Is because I got my faults, but one thing is I got a big heart and I care about the people I work with. So I figured, if I can share my stories, my failures in my personal life with them, hopefully they won't be a statistic as I have been, because this career does end and it does go by fast. So I think by me sharing and other people at my department sharing personal stories, letting them know that, hey, we're not perfect, even though I might be the chief of police. I got my own issues and stuff I work on, and it was a journey getting here to include learning from your failures and being open to them and discussing and realizing, I do care, but sometimes you hide it because you don't want people to see that you have these issues.
And I think that that's a testament to I think and so, a lesson I think all leadership can learn from is, you know, being vulnerable and sharing your stories. And there's so much power in that. And do you think that by you sharing that that has allowed other people to also share and feel comfortable with not being okay or needing resources? Do you think that that has been something that's encouraged buy-in and a culture of wellness within your organization?
I believe so. We do. It was kind of nice, is when I go to some of our supervisors' meetings, I would share with them that I have used EAP at times, especially for marriage counseling. And if they hear that from me in my position, and we also had a sergeant that even in briefing, he would let people know that he was receiving counseling. And I think if you see that your leaders, your people in supervisory positions are able to share those stories, it creates a safe environment, one without a lot of judgment. If we're able to share these stories as personal people that have already been down these roads, I think it opens the door for people to express themselves. I guess that would be my take on that.
100%. And so you would say that maybe not the secret to buy-in, but something that's worked for you guys to get buy-in and create a culture of wellness is having leadership share the things
Correct.
that are working for them and being vulnerable and open. And then that's allowing everyone underneath to also feel that way.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you. So you mentioned EAP
Mhm.
and that that was something that you utilized. What are other resources that have worked within your organization or that you've utilized within your organization from a physical perspective or a mental health perspective?
So we do have a workout on duty program. It's been very very successful. It's available to all. It's not perfect because sometimes calls for service don't allow our officers to use the gym. Our calls for service are low staffing. Our dispatchers aren't able to leave the dispatch center to use the gym. But it is being utilized. Our weight room does not have dust on it because people are in there actually working out. And it's encouraged. And a lot of times at briefing, they schedule their workout times. It's been a huge success, and we haven't had any claims of injuries from the gym, which is something we were concerned about when we originally started this under my predecessor, Chief Hill. That was been, I think, 4 years now. So that's a big component of it. I forget the last part of your question. I'm sorry.
Mental health.
Mental health. Just recently, our captain has secured a mental health clinician, and we do a wellness check-in now, and it's about a 20-minute sit down with a mental health clinician. We strongly encourage everyone to do it, and we line it up with the training day. So while they're doing normal training, they can leave there for 20 minutes, and we had great participation, and it was well received. And it was the first time in the history of our agency that we have done something like this. And we hope that they felt comfortable and in a secure environment where they can just talk to somebody and maybe start realizing there's things they need to work on mental health wise.
I love that you said we strongly encouraged because we know that that's like a synonym for maybe voluntelling.
Yes,
And we talked about this offline a little bit, so I know that. But you had such great receptiveness to
hmm,
this. And I love that you made it a part of, before when you said workout on duty, you made it a part of briefing. So it's scheduled time. And then for the mental health perspective, you made that a part of a training day. So
correct.
again, it's scheduled time on duty. Everyone's there doing it together as a team. And would you say that because it's scheduled time that there's solidarity and that's why people are feeling comfortable, that it's like, hey, we're all in this together?
Yeah, so they were all in on a training day, but they would go out individually to meet with the therapist for the 20 minutes during the 8 hour training day or what how many hours it was. We already decided that before we rolled this out, if someone was absolutely adamant about not doing it, we weren't going to make them. That would have, in our opinion, that would have been forcing it. It would have been wrong. But we had, to my knowledge, everybody went in for the 20-minute wellness check, and we're going to try to continue to do it. Our thought is if we can get something exposed internally, obviously in a private situation with a clinician, before it becomes a problem. As opposed to stuff that's happened in the past where you don't talk about it, don't bring it up. Now we're actually facilitating a discussion with someone that has training in this area.
100%. And I do love the idea of proactive wellness because we know that not only is it really important, but it's also the most challenging. It's, I think, human nature to not deal with a problem until there's a problem. And that's what has happened historically is, kind
For
of shove
sure.
everything down, don't deal with it. And then there's a big event that maybe could have been prevented through proactive measures. So I love your emphasis on proactive wellness to try to maybe not completely eliminate those things, but to reduce those things as much
For
as you
sure.
can in the future.
And we all know is trauma does transfer, especially on the front lines of law enforcement. You see and are exposed to some horrible things, and maybe you go home and you don't think it does transfer, but it does transfer. I can think of only two calls in my career where I remember where I was when I got the call, not where the call was. We all remember those bad calls at those houses or those intersections. But there was two calls in my career where I remember where I was when I was dispatched to it. One was a suicide of a 16-year-old. I've been to a lot of suicides. I've been to so many that I can't remember, but whatever it was, there was a 16-year-old that hung himself, and his single mom found him and called us. But I remember where I was driving when I got that call, and the fact that I remember that detail, that means that there's some trauma there.
Mhm.
All my other calls, I don't remember where I was. The other one was when Officer Paul Starzik from Martinez was shot and killed. I was on a car stop, and I remember where I was when I got that call. And he worked for Martinez PD. I worked for Pleasant Hill, but I knew him. But again, I remember where I was when I got that call. So you realize when you have those weird memories of details that aren't really relevant, there is some trauma that occurred during those calls is when you start realizing there's insignificant information that's planted in my brain for no reason. So
Yeah, and we know based on, so much science and research that cumulative trauma, what that does to your decision making, what that does to your mental health long term. And so, again, kind of going back to what we talked about before, is if we can be proactive and reactive, they both have to happen because
sure.
I don't know if there's anything that can prepare you for what you just said. And your career it's inevitable that you're going to see those things and you're going to experience those types of calls. And so how can we be more proactive as much as possible, but then how can we also be reactive after the fact to offload those things and start to recover from those things? And it sounds like for you and your organization, therapy has been something that's been successful from a mental health perspective. Is that
Yeah, very
correct?
much so. If you look at like a turbulent water with a bunch of dirt in it, that's like a traumatic environment. But then as things start to calm down, the dirt turns out to be a layer of sediment. And then after a while, more sediment comes on, and you got these lines of sediment. Although if you think about it as trauma, that trauma settles and it turns into a line. Doesn't mean it goes away. It just starts to get buried. And as we processing, in most cases, that can stay there and never be an issue. But every now and then, those things will stack up, and what you think is buried way down deep can affect you either cumulatively, like you've said, or something that you didn't process right and you tried to bury, and then later it comes up. Or in a lot of cases, when you go home and you're dealing with your family, you don't even realize why you're acting the way you're acting. Is maybe you haven't processed some trauma in a correct, healthy way,
100%.
or you've ignored it.
100%. Yeah. And I think that everyone listening can relate to that. I think we've all done that at some point of like shove it down and hope that it doesn't come back to haunt you or come back to the surface. And then for those of us who have experienced what that feels like for it to come back up, we know what that's like as well. And so, making sure that you have the resources available, I think is so important. So we, talked about some of the things that have been successful for you and your organization. We have workout on duty. And then you've, scheduled training days so that everyone has access to talk to somebody. We talked about this before that there is so much power in the challenges and maybe the failures. Is there anything that you find to be a challenge that you've had to face with wellness organizationally, or something that you've tried that maybe didn't work out? Just kind of words of wisdom
Yes.
for those who
Yeah,
maybe are
well,
listening.
I got one that I can give, but then there's a question I have for you because
Okay.
so the first one, if I could go back and give myself advice, is be prepared for change. As a new officer, I would get so angry about changes in the law, changes in procedures or policies, changes from admin. It's kind of funny. I would partake in complaining about the chief of police in briefing. I would complain about admin in briefing, and now I'm an administrator. I'm a chief of police, so I'd be naive to think that they don't complain about me. But yeah, I would if I could go back, I would say, hey, this industry is always going to be changing, and a lot of times the changes are good. As we talked so far, as in the beginning of my career, there was officers that would smoke, and mental health and wellness wasn't an issue. Well, changes have happened, and it made it better. So. That would be the one. The question I have for you is sleep, and it has to do with exercise, yoga, and that stuff. So even now, I still struggle with sleep, and I know how important sleep is. When I was younger, you would work 4 shifts in a row, graveyard. You would get 5 hours per night.
Mhm.
So my question is when it comes to yoga and exercise, when is the best time to exercise or do those activities to set a person up for a successful night of sleep?
Yeah, great question. And this is the first time I've ever been asked a question on the podcast, so I
Oh,
appreciate that.
sorry.
Oh, I love it. So tons of science. There's one book I can recommend if anyone is really trying to dive into sleep, and it's a book called Why We Sleep, or The Importance of Sleep. I can send you the link for that, and
Okay.
then I can also put it in the description of this podcast. So anyone who's like really wanting to dive into why sleep is important, and how to set yourself up for success. It's a little um, heady.
All right.
But you can listen to it on audio too, if that's helpful. But the idea is, and there's a lot of different things we can do. With sleep, you want to have good sleep hygiene. So you want to make sure that the room is dark, it's colder. You want to turn off any devices at least 15 minutes before you go to sleep. So there's things that you can do within your home to set yourself up for better sleep. We know that especially in this profession, not everyone's going to get 8 hours of sleep. It's
Yeah.
just like in some cases impossible. There's a lot of science to suggest that you really do need at least 8 hours.
Mhm.
And one night of bad sleep can significantly impair your reaction time, your judgment, and they relate it to operating with like a blood alcohol level of actually being drunk. Obviously, you're not, and you don't have a blood
Yeah.
alcohol of that, but it's like a similar response time. And so I would say step one for anyone who's wanting to help their sleep is try to create an environment that is conducive to better sleep. So again, blackout curtains, colder. Um, Try not to be on your device beforehand. Stress is a huge contributor to sleep, and we know that if you can't turn your brain off because of stress, you're ruminating
Yeah.
or your blood pressure is high, your heart rate is high, that's going to contribute to sleep. And so there are several breathing techniques that are really helpful for bringing your heart rate down, your blood pressure down, calming the nervous system. Meditations are really good.
Okay.
There's guided meditations, there's yoga nidra, there's eye sleep. So there's a number of meditations that would be more specific and more conducive to sleep that you could do beforehand. Most people don't make it to the end of the meditation, especially if it's a longer one, you'll just fall
Yeah.
asleep right away. But the idea of the breathing techniques and the meditations would be to, excuse me, I hit my mic, to calm the nervous system and to bring your heart rate and blood pressure down. So that's effective. As far as yoga, yoga is also designed to regulate the nervous system. So we're breathing intentionally, which is going to calm. But I would always suggest if it's right before bed, not doing anything with too high intensity
Okay.
because you're bringing your heart rate and your blood
Yes.
pressure up. So if you are really trying to focus on sleep, I'm not saying don't work out before you go to bed. If that's the only time you have to work out and that's your
Yeah.
physical health and that's also contributing to your mental health, then do what you can. But if it's like, hey, I really want to help my sleep, I would do something a little lower intensity, maybe a deep stretch if you're trying to do that. That also helps to get like the nerves out of the body. Because a lot of times if you have anxiety or stress, it's like kind of, reflecting in your body. So you can kind of slow stretch before bed, but nothing too high intensity. Um, and then, I mean, I could go on forever. There's other things that we can do to help that are kind of like external. There's sound machines, there's, things like that. But I would say step one, create an environment.
Okay.
Step two, do something that's going to regulate your nervous system, breathing technique, a guided meditation, or like a slow stretch class.
Thank you.
Does
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yes. Well, and we were talking about trauma and even proper sleep helps people process trauma, but sometimes after traumatic experience, you're not able to sleep. So,
Right. And sleep, I mean, sleep does so much for recovery, and it's not just mental, it's also physical. And so it's really, really, really important. And I think it's something that's been overlooked for a long time. And so whenever I'm looking at programming, if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, like these are all the things, I'm like, okay, if sleep is one of them, it's like that's where we start. Like let's start with sleep first,
okay.
and then we can go
Hold
from
on.
there. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. Um, Now I got to get back on track with my like interview
All right.
hat. Um, Okay, so we know the importance of wellness for your team, but there's been a conversation recently that I've had with several agencies that are now really prioritizing wellness for leadership and for more specifically chiefs, because we know that, you know, it can be, quote unquote, lonely at the top, and
Correct.
there really isn't anywhere to go. You can't go up, and a lot of chiefs find that they can't go down and
Mhm.
share things with their team. What are some things that you do for your wellness, whether that's physical or mental, that have helped you in your leadership role?
Yeah, so even though it is lonely at the top, you still absolutely need your support people. And you should hopefully you have them at work. I'm blessed with a very cohesive, strong, trusting, caring, loving command staff. We're very open, or even to we're okay with even disagreeing with each other and moving on and having healthy conflict. So yes, it is lonely at the top. You can never go home and turn it off. There's an even on vacation. It's like, hey, I can put my captain in charge and he can be the acting chief, but I choose to still do my emails because I don't want to come back on my last day or my day after vacation and have 100 emails. And if something really bad happens, the reality of it is I'm jumping on a plane or I'm driving home. So yes, it is lonely at top, but I really want to stress the importance of still having your support people. It was about over a year ago. I made a questionable decision, a controversial decision on a SWAT activation, and there was a lot of stress that went with that decision, and a lot of backlash from the community. And everything ended the way we wanted, but yes, I received a lot of criticism. And I understood it. People felt like what we did was unsafe, and then the decision making by a lot was questionable, and it came from me. And that was a lot of stress. But it was through my support system that I was able to get through it, and that even included my city manager. We are blessed with great elected officials, the mayor, my family, and then my command staff and some of the officers. And there was a time where I came to work and I had a defeated look on my face. And thankfully, it was my captain. He called me and says, "Hey, you look like you're defeated. What can we do? Because you got to come in and be that strong leader." And having that conversation with him, and him having the ability to call me out and say, "Hey, you need to get back in the game and be the chief we need to be." That was exactly what I needed to hear, is someone who had the courage to call me out when I needed to do better. But to answer your question, is still if you don't have it, you still need to establish support systems. Even in the chief rank, if you can reach out to your neighboring agencies, find people that you can confide in, trust in. And also continue to do the wellness stuff, physical exercise, mental health wellness, anything, any outlet. We all know the science behind exercise and other things. It's not a myth. It is proven to reduce stress. So going for a jog or exercising will reduce stress, eating healthy. And then what we have previously just discussed is getting proper sleep, which can be hard during a stressful time.
100%. And I thank you for sharing that, because I do think that oftentimes when we're stressed, we tend to isolate and feel like we're alone. And so not only realizing that you do have a support system, but I think it's also a message to others in leadership to say, hey, like, you guys are a team and you got to look
Mhm.
out for each other, and you have to look for those signs that someone may be down or something may have affected them, and to have that courage to reach out and to realize like we're not only a team, but I like to say like you're a family, like you're in
For
this
sure.
together, you work together, and you got to look out for each other. So I do appreciate that very much.
And something you said earlier about doing proactive wellness, and you look at the brand new officer. A lot of times, the first thing they do is they either get a dog or a pet after the academy or finishing FTO, and the very next thing they do is they buy a new truck or a new car. I did it. I still see rookie officers doing it, and so when you think about that brand new car, you still have to do preventive maintenance. When the car's brand new, the chances of something going wrong on it are slim, but they still can happen. But even a brand new car, you still need to do preventive maintenance. Now, the older you get, you still need to do that preventive maintenance. Even as a chief of police, I have to do preventive maintenance because I don't know what's going to happen next week, and I need to set myself up mentally and physically for the next stressful event that's going to happen. With a car, obviously, if you don't do preventive maintenance, you're increasing your likelihood of something bad happening, a blown engine, a transmission. But when it comes to us, if we're not doing preventive maintenance, we're talking significant health issues, high blood pressure, and then the personal side of it is not having healthy relationships at home, having a high divorce rate, going through divorces. We're not talking blown engines or transmissions. We're talking about real events that can haunt you forever if you don't do the preventive maintenance. With that, there is no guarantee. Bad stuff's not going to happen. You can do everything perfect. You can do all the preventive maintenance. Bad things will still happen, but it's going to significantly decrease your likelihood of having those things. And you're
I
setting yourself up for being able to cope with them when they do come up, and they are going to come up.
100%. And I love that analogy. I think it's so relatable to say like, hey, like you have to do it over here. So why aren't we doing it over here? You
Mhm.
know, like I love that analogy. That's the first time I've heard anything like that. So next question for
Yes,
you is you can retire right now.
correct.
And so you're not, you're
No,
going to stick it out.
yeah.
Um, So tell me what that maintenance looks like for you so that you can have that long and successful career. And then eventually, I think that everyone's goal is to have a long and successful retirement when it happens and to not get on the other side of this career and only have a few years left or have nothing to go to and no one to go to and you can't move and what does that maintenance look like for you? Because you could leave anytime you want
Yeah.
and you're not. So
Well, I think as part is just acknowledging the stress of this job. When you're younger, you just like, hey, it's part of it. But for me, I'm still enjoying the work. I'm still managing the stress, but I have to always remember how the stress needs to be managed. And I think a lot of people leave because they've had enough. We do this, we have this leadership program for new officers in the Bay Area, and I help with it. And we always talk about how much you can carry. And we have all the officers talk about the stresses of the job, and we have them talk about the stresses of their personal life. And the stresses of your personal life can affect your job. The stresses of the job can affect your personal life. Anyways, we have the officers write everything down, and then they share around the room what they're comfortable in sharing. When they hear another person say something that's not on their list that applies to them, and they put it down. And the point of that is a lot of times we don't know how much stress we're actually carrying, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And it's there's this term. It's something I read. It's not for me. I think it's called allostatic stress or allostatic load. And it's basically the stress everybody carries throughout their life. But for officers, there's acute allostatic stress, and that happens all the time. But To answer your question, is just being cognizant of the stress, managing it, doing the preventive maintenance to set yourself up on that long-term game plan. I still come to work because I enjoy it. I care about the officers. I care about the community. I miss working the streets. So I still love what I'm doing, and I'm very blessed to work where I'm at. And the community is very supportive of us, and we still like to go out and fight crime and put bad people and hold them accountable. But again, I think I'm sticking around because of a lot of luck, some humility, learning from my mistakes, and caring about everything. And I'll leave on this last point regarding stress. A long time ago, I was talking with an airline pilot. He worked for a major shipping company, and he did a lot of flying between U.S. and China, shipping products. And over a beer, we were discussing who had the most stressful job. And I was convinced, no, you're a pilot. You fly, commercial jets. You have to do all this math and everything and fly in storms and land in crosswinds. And he looks at me and he says, when I go to work, I have a backpack or a tote bag with me, and I have comfort clothes. When we get up to a certain altitude, we put on autopilot, and we get in our comfort clothes and we sit in there. We read. We play on electronic instrument or not devices. When I say play, they use them. And There is no stress. The plane flies all the way where it's going. And then he says, when it comes to landing, they put their flight suits back on, and the plane has some type of auto assist program. The pilots still land the plane, but there is an auto assist program that keeps them within certain numbers and there's certain ranges. And when I think about that and I apply it to police work, you cannot come to work and flip it to autopilot. There may be times where you come and you're a little checked out, but on any given shift, you might have that emergency call. And there is no autopilot in law enforcement. We may think we're just going through the motions, but yeah, I was like, oh, I think you do have me beat. I think law enforcement, especially on the front lines, is probably one of the most stressful jobs out there. And just doing preventive maintenance at a very young time in your career too late, it's super important to get to the end and set yourself up for success because this will end.
100%. And I think like those words of wisdom of, hey, you can have a long and successful career and you can make it to 28 years where you still love what you do and you want to continue the work that you love to do because you learned from your mistakes, because you had preventative maintenance and wellness over those years. And it's inspirational to think, like, for a young officer, that there is a long and successful career, and that is possible if you put in the work and you make sure you prioritize your wellness over the time and, 28 years, keep going and then have a long and successful retirement. So, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. I want to give you the floor if there's anything else you want to say, any other words of wisdom that you want to share before we sign off.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, if anybody's still, hopefully you're still tuned in. I think if you made it to the end of me blabbering so much, you deserve to know how I know I almost lit somebody on fire. So yeah, real
Yes.
quick, in summary, it was a car accident. A person was flipped over in the car. They were trapped, and it was the middle of the night. I was by myself, and I was going to put up a flare pattern. Yeah, but there was leaking gasoline. So thankfully, I did not put up the flare pattern. If I would have put up a flare pattern so the other cars didn't hit this car that was flipped over with someone trapped inside, there was a chance I would have lit that car on fire. So thankfully, I did not. But anyways, last thoughts is I will say that in 28 years it has gone by very very fast. And I will say that time is not on our side. I believe it. We're all running out of time. There's this thought that we can manage time. You always hear the concept of he or she has good time management, and my thought on that is you cannot manage time. Time is based on the spinning of the Earth. It goes around. It takes 24 hours for it to rotate, and it's broken down into seconds. So you can't manage time, but you can manage yourself around the time that you have. And with that, use it to include doing preventive maintenance so that you have a long career. So that you actually, when your career does end, you do better than I have, and you don't have the divorces I have. You don't have the failed parent moments that I have had. And thankfully, my daughters and my son, they're still very much in my life. My ex-wives are still very much in my life, and we have good relations. But I would just say, please put effort into yourself now with the time that you have, because it will end. And when this career ends, you're going to have your family and your friends left. And hopefully, after the stress of this job and this career and all that accumulative stress, you set yourself up for a very happy, meaningful, healthy retirement. And that is all I got. So thank you for allowing me to come on and talk so much.
Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate your words of wisdom. That's all I can say too. It's just thank you. That was great. Thank you so much.
Have a good day, everyone.